Welcome back to the Steel City Sports Podcast. This is episode 3 of the podcast, and today we have a great show. We'll be talking about the key games in the NFL for Week 14. We'll also touch on the Zach Wilson mess, and I'll also kind of talk about my thoughts currently on Robert Saleh, the head coach. And speaking of another head coach in that division, I'll also share some thoughts on Bill Belichick. And then we will wrap things off with bit of a curveball, which is I'm actually going to do some baseball talk on here, which I have never talked about baseball one time on here. I'm not sure if any of my subscribers even care about baseball, but stay tuned for that. That will be at the end. So let's start off with the key games for Week 14. So the first one that I highlighted is the Colts at the Bengals. The reason why this is a big game is because this has massive playoff implications, and I talked about this back when we did our Wild Card Wednesday video with the Colts. I felt like out of the 3 wild card teams at that point in time, which they still are currently the 3 AFC wild card teams, the Steelers, the Browns, and the Colts. I felt like out of those 3 teams, the Colts had the most difficult schedule remaining. So I was pretty hesitant on the Colts actually making the wild card, but you got to give them, a ton of credit for being 7-5 at this point. I think they only had Anthony Richardson for 3 or 4 games, and the fact that they're still a viable playoff team just speaks to Shane Steichen and how great he's been, and Gardner Minshew as well, obviously having probably the best year of his career. And then the Bengals, we just talked about how good Jake Browning was. I gave him praise after that Monday Night Football game. I actually made him our AFC quarterback of Week 13. So they're coming off of a massive win. They're 6-6 right now, 500. And after Burrow got hurt, I pounded the gavel and essentially saying the Bengals season is over. But after getting that massive win in Jacksonville, being at 500, you're only a game out of the wild card spot. And if you beat the Colts here, you would take the Colts wild card spot. And, I think this is going to be a massive game. And if Jake Browning plays like how he played in Jacksonville, even if he plays like at 80 or 70% of that, I think the Bengals have a very good shot of actually making the playoffs just because there's a lot of talent on this team around him. I think Zach Taylor is an above-average head coach. So this is going to be a really good game. I think whoever wins this one is going to have a really, really strong chance of making the wild card, especially the Colts. If they win this, they'd advance to 8-5, 3 games above 500. I think they would have a pretty good shot at making, especially with the Steelers and the Browns losing last week. So my next highlighted game is this one is just because in years past, we've had some epic games between these 2 teams. And this one also does have playoff implications as well. This is the Bills at the Chiefs. So, 2020, this was the AFC Championship game. 2021, they played each other in the playoffs. And we've had the past 3 years now, not so much now, but, about a year or 2 ago, we were having those Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes type debates. And, there were some people that were actually taking Josh Allen over Patrick Mahomes. Not me, but I knew people. And so this one is big for a couple of reasons. Number one, the Chiefs, they're vying for that 1 seed spot, especially with the Jags, who were another team vying for that 1 seed spot. Looking like the Jags are probably not going to get that now that Trevor Lawrence is injured. And there's a chance that the Jags actually fall off in terms of winning the division because Houston is really good. So, if the Jags collapse now that Lawrence is hurt, is going to miss multiple weeks, that could elevate Houston in, and that pretty much takes Jacksonville out of the 1 seed race, and it makes it a 3-team race between Baltimore, Kansas City, and Miami. And Kansas City, if they want that 1 seed, obviously they know how important it is. Both times they won the Super Bowl, they were the 1 seed in the AFC. So they know how important getting that 1 seed is. It's a big game for them. And for Buffalo, they're 6-6 right now. They're coming off of a bye, and this is a massive game for them. If they want to keep their wild card hopes alive, this almost feels like a must-win game for the Buffalo Bills. So I know the Bills have had a disappointing year, but this would be a massive win. This would be huge for the Buffalo Bills. So I think that's a really important game for those things I said. And then, of course, the game of the week. You knew it. You knew what game it was going to be on here. Eagles at Cowboys. And that has massive implications for me. Of course, there's the number 1 seed battle, which is going to come down to, I think, Eagles, Niners, Cowboys. One of those three teams will end up as the 1 seed. Obviously, Philly currently holds the 1 seed. If Dallas wins this and they put a lot of points up, they would become the 1 seed in the NFC. So that's massive right there. And then for Dak's MVP case, which I've talked about a lot on this channel, if Dak Prescott wants to be the MVP, this is a must-win game because we've seen how good he's been against the bad teams. But this is the type of game you have to win, especially when it's in Dallas. So we all know that's going to be a great game. I can't wait for that one. Let's move on to the Zach Wilson mess. Report came out, I think it was a day or two ago, that the Jets want to start Zach Wilson again. However, he's reluctant to come back. Then we heard later that was kind of a false report, and he actually does want to play. And then you have Robert Saleh out there saying, like, he doesn't know if he wants to put Zach Wilson in. So the New York Jets are just a complete disaster right now. They're in complete disarray. They went into this season way too Aaron reliant, and they've been scrambling ever since. You know, they've had some impressive performances, especially from their defense, but overall the Jets have been a complete clown show this year. And this just goes to highlight that, you know. And whenever Zach Wilson was benched, I got it at the time just because, like, you can go back and even watch that video. I think it was called The Zach Wilson Era Is Over. It was a short I put out on this channel. Go listen to what I said. Zach Wilson had some good games, but he's just too reckless to be a consistent starter in the NFL. However, the guy you replaced him with literally shouldn't even be in the NFL. Tim Boyle is probably the worst quarterback I've ever watched play, ever. And that includes college, that includes NFL. Literally, that game, that Black Friday game against the Dolphins, that was... I know a lot about watching bad offenses as a Steelers fan. And watching that literally wanted me to just dump bleach in my eyes with how bad Tim Boyle was. So Zach Wilson, I get it. He's not very consistent. He can be very reckless at times, but you cannot deny the fact that he's just a far more talented player than Tim Boyle. So that decision in hindsight makes zero sense, and that also brings me to my next point is Robert Saleh, because I've been a big, staunch Robert Saleh defender this whole year, because I've seen the performances from the defense this year that lead me to believe, like, oh, yeah, this guy can really coach that side of the ball. I think you should give him another year. You know, you kind of have the built-in excuse for the Jets of we were all in on Aaron, and he got hurt on the first drive, so it's not really our fault. But now I'm starting to not be as big a supporter of Robert Saleh, actually, and I wouldn't mind him. You know, I'm leaning like 55-45. 55, I'd keep him. 45, I'd get rid of him, is how I'm feeling right now. Whereas I used to be more like 80-20, keep him. But the whole way he's just managed this and how he's completely just shit on Zach Wilson and crushed his confidence. Like I said, Zach Wilson's no, elite player or anything like that. But he's on your team. He's your quarterback. And Robert Saleh has consistently just trashed Zach Wilson in the media. I don't get that. I think that is just a kind of a head scratcher. I don't think he's the best in terms of just pure leadership of a football team. But an X's and O's stamp on a defense, you can't deny he's a good defensive head coach. So you guys let me know on that, especially Jets fans. If there's any Jets fans listening to this right now, please go in the comments and let me know your thoughts. Does Robert Saleh deserve another year? Next segment, like I said, is Bill Belichick. I think Bill Belichick, the era is over with New England. I think the Patriots would be completely insane to bring Bill Belichick back next season. Like, every good run comes to an end. I get it. Bill Belichick on paper is the greatest coach. You can argue, not even in football, but in American professional sports. You can argue that. But, like I said, everything comes to an end. Everything reaches a high point, and it's clear now that Bill Belichick is far out of his prime. He can still coach the defensive side of the ball 100%, but the Patriots just gave Bill too much power. Allowing him to be the GM as well as the head coach was a complete disaster. You go look at the last however many drafts that Bill Belichick has had that GM power in New England. They've been complete and utter disasters. Look at just the skill positions alone. He clearly just lacks the knowledge to understand offense in the NFL. So we'll probably talk about it more later on, maybe in the offseason, about potential landing spots for Bill Belichick if he doesn't want to retire. And I feel like there probably is that chip on Bill's shoulder. He probably still wants to get another ring. Just the fact that Tom got one without him. He wants to prove, in his ego, he wants to prove that he didn't need Tom. So I could definitely see Bill coaching somewhere else next year, but I have no idea where that would be. I saw some people mention Carolina. Why the hell would Bill Belichick want to go to Carolina right now? I mean, if his objective is to get a Super Bowl, that would be going backwards. That'd actually be finding a way to go on a worse team than the Patriots. So, you guys, again, I want to hear you guys in the comments. Where do you think is a realistic, good spot for Bill to go? And you also have the advantage of his offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, just sitting out there. So you can bring them in together. We've seen them have a lot of success together. Mac Jones' rookie year, they made the playoffs, which is still, I think, one of the biggest head scratchers in the history of the NFL. Because Mac Jones, his last 2 seasons, has been atrocious. Not even an NFL-level quarterback. Yet that rookie year, he was a Pro Bowler and led the Patriots to 11 wins and a playoff berth. It makes 0 sense. And that brings us to our last category. Like I said, I'm going to talk a little bit of baseball here. So I am definitely stepping outside of my comfort zone. I do not claim at all to be a baseball savant or anything. I'm a very, very, very casual baseball fan. But over the years, I have started to get into it more and more. I did enjoy this past postseason run with the Rangers winning it all. 2 things I wanted to talk about. Number one, Juan Soto was traded today to the New York Yankees. And again, if you're not as familiar with baseball, Juan Soto is one of the best young players in the MLB. This is an earth-shattering, groundbreaking move, especially Juan Soto going to the Yankees, the by far the biggest brand in MLB. The MLB, and they missed the postseason this past year. Now, someone who knows the sport more than me would have to probably sit down and break down why the Yankees missed it this year. But I just thought it was something worth bringing up. The fact that Juan Soto now plays for the New York Yankees. There was a point in time where Juan Soto was considered a top 10 player in the MLB. That wasn't that long ago where Juan Soto was considered that high. And he's still young. I think he's only, 25, 26 years old. And now he's headed to the Yankees. So I am actually excited to see how the Yankees perform. They got a lot of power hitters there with Judge and Stanton is still there. Now adding Soto. They got a lot of power. And then our last one is Shohei Ohtani. We are going to learn. It was reported that Shohei is going to tell us all over the weekend what team he's going to sign with. And when that happens, I'm probably going to have to make a video about it just because of how groundbreaking of a move that's going to be. Unless he stays with the Angels, that's going to be depressing if Shohei goes back to the Angels. I don't want to see him waste his career. A guy that talented just deserves to play in the postseason, and the Angels have failed him. So I really am excited to see where Shohei goes. And Shohei, that report coming out today is really the reason why I wanted to talk a little bit of baseball, is because Shohei is not only the best player in the MLB, but you could argue he's the greatest athlete on the planet right now. It's like if Patrick Mahomes does everything great he does as a quarterback, but on top of that, he plays defense and gets you 15 or 20 sacks a year as well. That's the level of player Shohei Ohtani is in the MLB. And the fact that we're probably going to see the largest deal ever given out to an MLB player, I can't wait to see where he goes. So, again, please shout in the comments if you're listening, where do you think Ohtani's going to go? So, if you made it this far, always appreciate you guys listening to me ramble. Go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, and please, please, please leave a comment.